When the notice slipped under my apartment door, I already knew what it was before I bent down to pick it up. The thin white paper felt heavier than it should have, like it carried more weight than ink and words. Rent was due. 3 words that had followed me for months like a shadow I couldn't outrun. My name is Emily Carter, and I was 27 years old, living alone in a small apartment in Cleveland. The building was old, the paint chipped, the hallway lights flickered, and the elevator had stopped working years ago. Still, it was home. Or at least, it was the closest thing to stability I had after life unraveled faster than I could hold it together. I had lost my job 6 months earlier when the publishing company I worked for downsized. What I thought would be a temporary setback turned into a long, exhausting stretch of rejection emails, unanswered applications, and sleepless nights. I picked up freelance work when I could, but it was never enough. Every month became a careful balancing act between groceries, utilities, and rent. And rent always came first, because without a roof, nothing else mattered. My landlord, Marcus Johnson, owned the building. He was in his early 40s, tall, calm, and carried himself with a quiet confidence. Most tenants didn't know much about him because he rarely interfered unless necessary. He wasn't the kind of landlord who knocked on doors or hovered around. He handled business professionally and kept his distance, which I appreciated. But this month was different. I stared at the notice, my heart pounding. I was already 2 weeks late. I had avoided his calls, not because I didn't respect him, but because I didn't know what to say. Apologies didn't pay rent, and promises without money felt empty. That evening, there was a knock at my door. I froze. Another knock followed, steady but not aggressive. "Emily," a voice called through the door. "It's Marcus." I took a deep breath and opened it slowly. He stood there with his hands in his coat pockets, his expression serious but not angry. "I didn't want to keep calling," he said gently. "I figured it would be better to talk face to face." "I know," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm really sorry. I'm trying." He nodded. "I know you are." That surprised me. He asked if we could sit down. We sat at my small kitchen table, the hum of the old refrigerator filling the silence. I expected a lecture, an eviction warning, maybe even anger. Instead, he asked me about my work, my background, how I ended up here. No one had asked me those questions in months. I told him everything. About losing my job. About my mother's medical bills. About how I skipped meals so I could save money. The words poured out before I could stop them, and once I finished, I felt embarrassed, like I had exposed too much. Marcus leaned back in his chair, thinking. "Emily," he said finally, "I didn't grow up with money. My mom worked 2 jobs. We were behind on rent more times than I can count. I know what it feels like to live with that constant pressure." I looked up at him, surprised again. "I'm not here to throw you out," he continued. "But I also have responsibilities. This building, the other tenants, it all costs money." "I understand," I said quickly. "If you need to start the eviction process, I'll accept it. I just need a little time to find somewhere else." He shook his head. "That's not my plan." I frowned. "Then, what is?" "My other plan," he said carefully, "is to help you get back on your feet, but it has to be done the right way." Over the next hour, Marcus explained that he ran a small property management company and was expanding into digital marketing and tenant relations. He needed help writing content, managing emails, and organizing documents. When he mentioned writing, my chest tightened. You were in publishing, right? He asked. I nodded. I can't just erase your rent, he said. But I can offer you temporary work. Real work. Paid. Enough to cover what you owe and more if you stick with it. I felt tears burn my eyes. You'd really do that? I asked. I'm not doing you a favor, he replied. I'm offering you an opportunity. You decide if you want it. I accepted. The next few weeks changed everything. I worked from my apartment, helping Marcus revamp his website, write tenant guides, and organize lease documents. He treated me like a professional, not someone he was rescuing. Every assignment came with clear expectations and fair pay. Slowly, I caught up on rent. For the first time in months, I slept without panic twisting my stomach. More than that, my confidence returned. One evening, after delivering the final draft of a tenant handbook, Marcus stopped by to review it in person. We talked, not as landlord and tenant, but as two people who had walked hard roads and survived. You're good at this, he told me. You should be doing it full time. I forgot that I could, I admitted. He smiled. Sometimes people just need someone to believe in them when they stop believing in themselves. A month later, I landed a full-time remote job with a housing nonprofit, thanks in part to the portfolio I built working with Marcus. When I handed him my rent check, paid in full and on time, it felt like a victory. I won't forget what you did, I said. He shook his head. Just pay it forward when you can. As I closed my apartment door that night, I realized something important. Rent had been due, yes, but what truly saved me wasn't money. It was dignity, respect, and the reminder that sometimes, the people we expect to be obstacles turn out to be unexpected allies.